G'day friends, welcome to today's YouTube video. My name is James, welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you're new. We are just about to head into Mermay 2024 and I have been filming like a madman in this particular journal doing daily Mermay videos. But before I start that month and do like 100 million videos to kill the algorithm on my channel, I feel like I wanted to get this one out to you first because I started the challenge. The first day of the challenge was I just didn't do exactly what I planned to do, which is kind of the whole point. I was planning to not plan to do things. I really just wanted to take it easy, you know, have an idea, put it down in the journal, and then just move on with life. Not to get it done quickly or anything, but I just wanted it to be really fuss-free, really carefree. And as with almost anything, the first thing I do generally is, it's like, you have to kind of get it out of the way. The first piece I did in here was not as fuss-free, it was not as carefree, it was not as thoughtless as I wanted it to be. And so I moved straight onto the second one when this idea popped into my head and I was like, I just need to do something that I'm not expecting any really good results from, that is simple enough in its approach that I'm sure I'll just have a good time moving my hands to. So I did this and it turned out and I just loved it. It was so simple and I thought this would actually be a really good one to teach because it's kind of methodic the way that you do it. It's got this production line style quality to it, which is how I like to work sometimes, especially when I'm working with one aesthetic and I'm trying to find all these derivatives, all these variations on that one original image. And I figured that because Mermay is a challenge where you end up creating 31 mermaids, some people like to work in a style that is similar, or they like to do the same thing over and over and over again to really practice the skill or to hone in on it. And this would be a really great one for that because it's simple enough to replicate and you could also make a really interesting spread by the end of it. This one has 1, 2, 3, 4, these are 5 mermaids here on this one page. I do have this page broken up into 31 different spaces for these mermaids. I'm going to show you how to do maybe 2 today on the video, but obviously do as many as you want. Do it for the whole month if you want to complete the challenge. Just do 1 or 2 if you just want to have some fun today, but I wanted to teach it to you. I've also got my little cheat sheet over here. Let me make sure everything's in focus because sometimes it all goes a little haywire. There you go. I got a piece of paper and I've got a pencil. I'm going to do this a little bit bigger than I would do it normally in a journal, just so you can see on the screen. But I've broken everything down into really manageable steps. These are kind of like blocks that make up, you know, if you take away all of it, there's one complete mermaid in these blocks here. But we don't need to copy them exactly. These are just for reference for different hairstyles, different faces, different, you know, little additions that you can add to them. The first thing we want to do though is separate our page into the mermaids, and I'm taking a line from the top all the way down to the bottom. I put a little bit of a curve to it. Sometimes I like when they start a bit thinner at the top and wing out at the bottom. Sometimes I like the opposite, a little bit wider at the top and a little bit thinner at the bottom. The point is just to break your page up into however many mermaids you want. So 4 lines will get you 5 spaces. So you always get 1 extra space when you're working that way. Just think of that. If you want to make 10 spaces, you need 9 lines. If you want 21 spaces, you need 20 lines. But just keep enough space. These are really, really tiny. I don't mind working at that scale, but the more you put on, obviously, the smaller they're going to get. And we don't need to break them up horizontally this way, but I did just want to make sure that you saw which step I go in because there's kind of an order to it that keeps everything really focused in my head. So I'm going to start with this block here, this one right in the middle so you can see the best largest view of what we're doing. The first thing I do is put on the hairline. And I usually start with the bang because it's going to tell me how much space I'm going to need for my head. So I'll start with this really simple one here. I'm going to put a horizontal line, just a flat line right there. And then I'm going to come down the side. Sometimes I like to follow the curve of that edge. I'm just going to wing it off. Everything hits the borders. So these borders, these 2 train track lines, everything kind of flows out to those lines. So it's like the mermaid's kind of been squished between the lines. We don't really want any negative space around it. And that's kind of what also makes this a really simple exercise because you're not dealing with any negative space. It's all these internal lines. You've already got the outline. We're just doing all the inlines. I also put sometimes 3 little breaks in the hair. These are just 3 dashes to break up that bang to make it look different from the rest of the fullness of the rest of the hair. And then I'm going to put the face on. The face kind of goes a little bit lower than you would expect. I kind of like it a little bit lower. And I start with 2 circles, or they're kind of flat ovals. Vary up the shape. You can do really big circles. You can do small kind of leaf shapes, just to get different eye options. The lower you put them, the larger the forehead. And I do like quite a large forehead on these. And I'm going to fill in a semicircle completely. That becomes all the eye detail, the iris, the pupil, everything. I've also got them quite close to the hairline. I don't like the eyes to be too close together. If anything, they kind of disappear into the hairline. So keep them really spread out. And then we only add a row of dashes at the bottom of the eye for a set of lower lashes. I've just been doing this lately. I don't know why. It's very 60s. I like the kind of mod effect that it has. I'm going to put a little soft U shape. It's so soft. It's almost a flat line, but it's slightly curved. And the wider you do that, the wider your nose bridge is going to look. So you can either keep it really small and pinched, or you can make it nice and wide set, and that will be your nose. I keep it relatively close to the eyes, like don't put it too far down. I kind of like the eyes, nose, and lips to be all smushed together. And the lips, I like to call this the gumdrop shape. It's like a rainbow with a really soft rounded bottom edge. It's kind of a neutral expression. It's not sad, it's not angry, it's just very neutral. So start with a rainbow shape right underneath the nose and then just round off a flat edge. By that, I mean you round off the corners where it meets the flat bottom edge. And that is your face. Next, we're going to dip under into the chin. And I keep that chin really close to the mouth. This one isn't in the blocks, but you can kind of see that that block separates the face from the next part of our image. So you can either put a little point at the chin and make it nice and pointy, or you can have it soft and round. I tend to think that the soft, rounder shapes make them look a little bit more youthful. And if you want them to look a little bit older or more structured, you can put a bit of a sharper angle in that chin. And then we're going to run these J shapes. There's one J and then there's a backwards J into the hairline. We run that neck into the hairline because essentially now we conceal the shoulders and we don't have to worry about there being any negative space between the hair, the shoulders, the arms, and this outside edge. Now that they're here, all we have to do is worry about where the arms pop out. And I always put this little detail in just to make sure that you know this is the hair behind. 3 strands that just indicate kind of a shadow. It kind of recedes that hair into the background. I like to keep the direction or the line that hairline has. So if you see, if there's a hairline that's kind of wavy, I'll make these lines wavy as well. If it's straight, I'll just keep them straight and just put 3 back there. Alternatively, you could just shade them in. That would also be a good way to set it back. And then we have to, well, I do the arms and then I kind of put this on because it depends on how much of the arms you can see past. But we're going to put the arms on and then we'll come back to the little seashell bra. The arms, we're going to worry about the inside line. And I'm going to do these really simple ones first. They just have rounded edges. It's like a tube, just kind of rounded at the edge. And then just put 3 dashes for fingers. You don't have to put the fingers on. Sometimes I just like it. It's very simple, kind of, it looks very Japanese retro. I think that's what I really like about it. So we're only doing the inside line because again, that border, that perimeter of our original lines we drew becomes the outside edge of those arms. And now we can put on our seashell bra. I'm going to do the standard starfish and 3 lines for some detail. Now you'll notice I've chosen 3 lines up in the hair, 3 behind here, 3 on here, 3 on there. That's just one of those things that I choose to tell myself as a general rule so that I don't have to keep making that decision again. If I do another one and I feel like there's more space to play with more lines, I might end up adding more, but then it also kind of takes it out of the original style, or sometimes it can look a little too different from what I've been doing before. And so if you choose things like that, like 3 dash line details to be consistent, you'll tend to build a very formulaic approach to making the style easy to replicate or to make derivatives of. You've kind of got the rules set up. They're not in stone. You can always change it. But every time you're thinking, okay, well, how many legs should I add for this jellyfish? 3, because I've been doing 3 3 just seems to be the number. Didn't really make sense for the crab, so that's why I say it's not a rule. But when you do have to make a decision, like how many jellyfish tentacles, you can just stick with what you've got. So I chose 3. Originally it was 2. I didn't like 2. I chose 3. But the eyelashes, there's all different numbers of eyelashes there. You could choose to just do 3 as well, but I like more. I like more of a full look. So I've added that, and now I'm going to put the belly button on. The lower you put the belly button, the longer the torso. I tend to like a shorter torso, so I'll put the belly button a little bit high. And then we add this waistband. You've got a V shape, and you've got another shape underneath that starts the scales. So you can choose to have it very pointy, very rounded. The more rounded you do, sometimes I think they look like they've got a bit of a fuller belly. And then I'm going to just do another rounded shape underneath. And that starts our tail. This is all the section that you're going to add your scales to, and I've done a bunch of different scale options. My goal originally was to have all the scales look different to one another, but I think there would become a point where you start to, hit a wall and you can't really reinvent the scale at that point. But ultimately, if they've got that scalloped shape, that rounded, connected, or it doesn't really have to be connected, but that rounded scale scallop shape, you'll be good. My trick for scales that look kind of even, I'm going to try and do them really big here so you can see. I'll start in the middle with that big U shape or smile shape, and then I'll hit the edge. So that you've got nice 3 big scales. Now you want to start in the middle, like the lowest point of that dip, and meet the other lowest point of the dip with your next U shape. And then again, the lowest point and the lowest point. You want to meet there. This, because it's the edge, you're just going to run off to the edge. And if you've always got at least 2 to connect, you can start there and then run off to the edge, because you can't really see the lowest point of that one, so you know it's just running off. Ultimately, in something like this, you'll end up repeating. This becomes your A line, this becomes an A line, this is your B line, this is your B, so you go A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B. It just kind of filters itself out if you keep it consistent, but I don't really need to. Sometimes I'll accidentally run all the way to the edge and it won't matter. And once you've got an idea for looking for that center and you can keep that scallop shape pretty consistent, you can just freehand it. You can see how sometimes I've got a little extra one over here. Sometimes I've got the little extra over there. It's really not the end of the world if they don't line up perfectly or make the most perfect patterning. We just want to get all the way down to the bottom. And you can either choose to make a shape to cut off the tail to the fluke, I want to say is that part, the fin right at the end. So I've got a few little shapes here. These are all kind of straight. That's a straight edge. That's a straight edge. You can see this is that V shape here. This one has a rounded shape. That one has a little straight edge there. This one has a V. Let's do the V. I'm going to put a V shape here. And so I'll keep the scales going until I get down to the bottom of the V. And then we do our tail. The tail is just a bunch of lines. You can either have them going straight. I've got a few edges here, like the little triangle cutout edge I kind of like. I'll put that little triangle edge here. And for now, I'm just going to go straight down the middle. And then I'm going to slightly wing out some of these lines. So there's a little bit of direction to them. And I'll just keep that pattern going until it hits the edge. Remember, all of this is contained inside this perimeter. And so really the only negative space we have is if you have this little triangle of space down here, that would be some negative space. Sometimes I'll just add some extra lines down there and call it a day. But if you are going to put them in quote unquote water, that would be the little water blue bit that you could see behind them. Everything else they fill up the entire row for. So that's really the only bit that I guess doesn't follow the rule that, it's all just this mermaid in this tube, but it is what it is. Like I said, the rules are there, but they're not always supposed to be followed 100%. I love to break the rules. So I've got everything there. The only other things we have to add are these extra little bits and pieces. I love this kind of flower bit here. I love this little fish as well. I would just add something to the hair, to be honest. She's holding a flower, so you could always add something to their hands, but the hair is kind of a great place to put a little extra. So I'm going to add kind of like the sun up in the top corner. You know what you can do a sun when you're a kid? You put them up there like that. And then I'm going to add the petals. Just leaf shapes. Keep them a little bit rounded. We'll do one row and then another row in between. And now she's got a big flower in her hair. I could put another one on this side as well, but that might be a bit overkill. And I'm going to do my other mermaid just so you can see, once you've got the idea of everything, how I'll just use a few of the other options and we can get a completely different effect. So I'm going to choose to do the curly hair. I think I'm going to give it a bit of a rounded middle part and then some nice waves down here. I like to keep the waves symmetrical. So if your first curve goes in towards the face, remember to go in towards the face on the other side. If you're right-handed, sometimes it helps to start on the left so that you can see what you're doing when you get to the right. If you start on the right and then move over to the left, sometimes you're blocking it. It's never a rule I remember, but just in case, it's good to know. I'm going to add these eyes a little bit more circular than oval, and they're right up in that hairline. And a really big pupil iris detail. The bigger you make the pupil in the eye, the kind of cuter the eyes look. The more white space there is, they're a little more stark. You can also add some expression to the eyes. You can see over here, if you add the top part of the eye, if you angle it a little bit more severe that way, they tend to look a little bit more intense. If you add that little dip in the eye here, that kind of upside down Nike check mark, that could look like really sad eyes because it mimics the shape that your eye makes when you furrow your brows like that. These mermaids don't have brows, so if you do want to add expression in them, you have to just change the top shape of the eye. So just have a play around with them. I like the rounded, they look kind of cute. And then a little nose. I'm going to do a little mouth too this time. I just like to switch up all the proportions. If you've ever done a class with me, I've always talked about proportion and placement. This is one of those things where you get a really direct look at doing the exact same thing and making those minor adjustments to the exact same illustration. Well, it's not the exact. I mean, we changed the curly hair, sorry. The police are here to get me. No, it's the fire engine. Every video I do, there's an alarm in it, so you're probably not surprised. But everything we do, like it's formulaic, right? We're doing the exact same process, but we're changing, the size of it. We're changing the shape of it a little bit. We're changing, that's really it. The placement, we'll change where we put it. Sometimes we'll squish things a little closer together. Sometimes we'll push them apart. And every little change you make that way completely changes the overall effect. So this is how everyone says, everything's already done in art. It's all been done before. We're just kind of making our own versions of it. And that is true. And this is how you kind of make that happen. So I'm going to put my neck into the hairline. If for any reason your shoulder doesn't come down to the hairline, like if you've got a short bob and you can see the shoulder, just round it off to the edge like you see here. And then just put those lines in until you hit the edge. It really doesn't matter. You can have some negative space there. I just liked to take the guesswork out of having to draw shoulders if people didn't feel too comfortable with all that. See, like here, it's probably a little too, like her shoulder would kind of come down here. So I might just leave that negative space. We'll just round it off. You still want the outside edge of the arm to hit the outside edge though. You don't want to be drawing the outside edge of the arm, only the inside. Like here, we can bring these arms in. Like I like this crossed one. I'm going to bring this one in to about halfway, and then it'll leave the edge after it's kind of kissed the edge for a little bit. Put my 3 lines on, bring this one in, cross it over. You'll see it peek behind just a little bit. It's a very pleasant pose. Oh, I forgot to add this, the chin shadow. You draw a U underneath the chin and shade it in. It's really the only shadow that we add in, but I do like to separate the face from the neck, and that's just the best way to do it, just to add that U and shade it in. And then we're going to add her seashell bra, I think. We might do, I like this seashell bra. I'm going to use this as a bra, even though all of these are different. So I'm going to add 3 scallops. And then it's a bit of a triangle shape inwards. and then outwards, and then those same 3 scallops, but a bit smaller underneath. And then the 3 line details kind of fan out that way. And her belly button. And then this one, I'm going to add a really soft rounded shape because she looks a little chubbier. So I'm going to really accentuate that for her waistband. And then we have all of her scales. Before I do the scales, I'm going to put the tail on. Sometimes if I really just don't have the extra time, because this is a great thing to do if you don't have all the time in the world to do a 31-day challenge, I will make the scale area a lot smaller so that I don't have to do that pattern too repetitively. Other times I want to do it, so it's fine. If you want to make that area smaller, you just have to bring your tail up. So I'm just going to do, should I do a flat edge? Maybe I'll do this rounded edge. And then there's 2 leaf shapes here that make that fin. I'm going to add all my lines in there. So again, there's going to be that negative space just down here. You can choose to fill it. Like sometimes I'll do a smaller line detail. So it's like she's got a secondary fin. Maybe I would color that in a bit of a different color if I was going to color them. I've been doing all mine in black and white with red and some gray as well. So I'll show you what that was at the end. And then just choose a different scale pattern. I really enjoyed this one because I thought it was really interesting. If you go 1 huge scale from side to side, and then half a scale each, and then 1 huge scale again. Essentially it becomes just like having 1 huge scale. So I thought that was interesting. Well, not one, but like they're just massive from side to side. That was kind of the most challenging part for me, was to come up with the variations of the scales. All the rest I felt like was kind of easy and fine to figure out, but I felt like once I'd done 2 scale patterns, I was like, that's it, that's all that exists in the world, there are no more. But what I did mean, if you do want to add those lines in, just add them in down there as well. That's fine. It can look like extra hair. The little extra that I want to add to her in her hair, maybe some bubbles? She might want bubbles. I'm going to put these 3 bubbles, or maybe I'll put 2 on that side and 1 on this side. Yeah, that looks great. And that is it for how to draw them. The only extra detail I add, like I said, were the gray. Sorry, I've got to find the page without spoiling all my other mermaids. Added some red cheeks, just in a circle underneath the eyes. Lovely. I added red to the lips because I love a red lipstick. You might not be able to see all the cheeks, that might disappear behind some of the hair, so use your best judgment as to how much you could see. And then I added some gray behind the eyes. I'm going to use this crayon. Or not behind the eyes, I just added it to the top of the eyes for eyeshadow. It's kind of a cool gray, a little bit of a blue gray. Of course, you could color the whole thing in or accentuate certain pieces. Maybe you want to color in the little flowers and bubbles and little extra bits you add. Maybe you just want to make each tail a different color for, you know, as you go along. If you have 31 different colors of something, you could essentially swatch everything out in the scales. Or, I mean, anything really. Just go for gold. Do what you want. You can see this is what I did before I had those rules of, you know, 3 over here and 3 up here. And here I added, you know, pearls, which I don't think I even add them as an option here. Nope. And there were no sea creatures in these ones. So this was my original. And then I developed the idea here because I thought, oh, I want to teach this. And then I came up with the grid that you would need, which I think translates better horizontally than it does vertically. But I mean, it's all a bit of a challenge in the end. And that is everything. I better go before my allergies really start acting up. You'll be so sick of me getting really nasal over here. those are my mermaids for Mermay. If you're just looking for something simple and fun to do and something that you could repeat 31 times and find 31 different versions of, I hope you have a great time with it. If you do, please tag me on social media. I love to see it. I love to share it. And I will have this cheat sheet available to you. I don't know if I'll put it on my Instagram or if I will just pop it up on my website. Either way about it, look for the description box below to see where I ended up putting it, and I'll direct you over towards it, and you can have this to reference. If you're just finding it a little bit difficult to choose where to go next, you can make tons and tons and tons of variations with everything I've got right here. And I drew it all for you, so I want to give it to you. Have a wonderful Mermay, everyone. I will see you very soon for 31 days of Mermay videos. That is my plan. That's my hope. That's my dream. That's my goal. That's my vision. We'll see how we go. I've done a ton of them already. So I think we'll get there. It'll be great. We'll share lots of stories and have lots of good times drawing mermaids, which is one of my favorite things in the whole world. Until then, goodbye.